Thank you, Werner. I'm really happy to be here. People of Earth, heed my words. I come to you from the future. I come from 25 years in your future. And I have come back in time to tell you about my world. In my world, in the future, these technologies you've been talking about today, artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, they have blossomed. They are now part of our world. You think cell phones changed the world? You think the internet changed the world? You don't know anything about how deep learning has changed my world. It is everywhere, and it is awful. It is just terrible. So I have come back in time to this moment when you understand just enough about this algorithm, this technique, to be able to control it, but you haven't deployed it yet in the way it can be deployed. This is the moment to take control and prevent the disaster. So that's what I'm here to tell you about, what my future looks like and how you can prevent it. Then I can go back to the future a happy man. I want us to prevent the unraveling of individual freedom and personal creativity. Now, it's not all bad. I don't mean to say that everything in the future is bad. There are a number of good things happening in the future. The Brexit plan in 25 years is this close to working out. And I understand they have very high hopes. In 25 years, we have jetpacks, finally. And the only reason we're having jetpacks is so that we can have airborne ninja fights. So this is great. And it also turns out all those kids playing Sim City who we thought were wasting their time, they turned into great Martian colony designers. So there are some good things going on in the future, but there are also some problems. And the problem is brought about because we have machine learning everywhere. Now, whether we call it machine learning or deep learning or artificial intelligence, I'll use those terms interchangeably. But what we've already discussed here today is that machine learning and deep learning, as we know them now, don't deserve to be called artificial intelligence. There's no intelligence in these systems. They're just big linear algebra machines. So they're just plodding through the code that we've written for them. They have no understanding. They have no picture of the world in which they operate or the repercussions of their choices or what they mean. They're just carrying out algorithms. So we can call it artificial intelligence, but let's not kid ourselves. It's artificial, but not intelligent. Now, you folks in the past, and may I say, you are a talented and very attractive group. You have been talking about computer graphics today. And so I would like to just make the distinction between computer graphics and artificial intelligence. Computer graphics is a paintbrush. Computer graphics is a tool for us to take what is in our head and bring it out of our head as an image and communicate it to other people. So it is a paintbrush that we use in order to establish a connection to other people and help them see the world as we see it. Computer graphics is a communications medium. Artificial intelligence, on the other hand, it's a mirror. Artificial intelligence shows us who and what we are. If you have ever had a pet, if you have ever had a child, and you see your pet or your child mirroring your behavior, doing something unexpected, and you look at them and you think, where did you learn to do that? So some of you know the answer. You learned it from me, and I didn't know I did that, and I'm not happy about that. That's what artificial intelligence is doing. Again, synonym for deep learning or machine learning. These systems are showing us who we are, what we care about, what we value, what we don't value. And we manifest those things in these algorithms because these algorithms help shape the world in which we live. Now, 25 years from now, we are all familiar with the problems. Back in your day, some people are just starting to raise the call. someone named Cathy O'Neill has written a wonderful popular level book called Weapons of Math Destruction, in which she begins to talk about the very beginnings of some of these problems. And O'Neill identified 3 general categories of issues that I would like to now paraphrase for you and put my own spin on them, but they're basically O'Neill's ideas. The first is that these algorithms are not always visible. We don't always know when we're interacting with one of them. So if you go to the bank to get a loan, and we will revisit this example. You go to the bank to get a loan, you fill out your paperwork, you hand it to a person. Let's say there's still a person at your bank, or you find the one person who's working there. They take your paperwork, they go into the back room, they come back a little later, and they say, "We're sorry, your loan has been denied." Or, "Congratulations, your loan has been approved." And then you leave. Did you have any interaction with a machine learning system? Who knows? Your child applies to school, to either a private school or a college or a university, and they fill out all their paperwork and they write their essays and they mail it all in, and then later on they get a letter back that says, "Congratulations," or "We're very sorry," or maybe "You've been waitlisted." Was there a machine learning algorithm involved? I don't know. It's invisible. So the first problem is just a simple one of visibility. Is there even something out there to be worried about? If there is something out there, we want to know, is it fair? Who is it working for? Well, it's almost never working for us, because who wrote this thing? Who is paying for it? Who owns the computers it's running on? It's not us, the citizens. It's almost always going to be a for-profit corporation or a government. Now, what is it for-profit corporations want? Profit. That is all they want. They are amoral constructs that we invented that have only one purpose in existence, and that is to make profit. If they do not make profit, the shareholders will oust the people in charge and put in new people. And they will keep doing that until the new people make a profit. That is the only reason corporations exist. There may be some people in the corporation who choose to do other things, like sponsor symposia, and that's a wonderful thing. But they're doing that with their profits. They have to make profits to do those good works. If the system is being run by a government, I think we're all a little bit familiar today that not all governments are working in our best interests. We now have a lot of leaders throughout the country, definitely, or throughout the globe, and definitely in my country, the United States. We have despots, we have ideologues, we have idiots, we have people who are just out for their own self-interest, for money or power. They're not out there for us. And so these deep learning systems are not out there to make our lives better. They're out there to further the agenda of the organizations that own them. Third, what is the reach of this organization? Of this deep learning system? How far, and there's 2 qualities of reach. The first is, how deep into our life can this thing reach? How much of our lives do these systems have control over? And the second is, what is the breadth of their reach? If a system in Oslo makes a decision, does a system in Paraguay know about it? Well, in my time, the answer is heck yeah. It knows about it almost instantly. So the whole world becomes one network of shared information with these various systems making decisions that are instantly shared with everyone else. That's got some repercussions, and we'll talk about that. So before we get into the meat of things, I would like to make you all time travelers with me. I would like us all to travel about 100 years into the past, when John Steinbeck wrote a book called The Grapes of Wrath. He wrote it in 1939. The book takes place in 1929, in the heart of the Depression. In the United States, in the 1920s, there was a region of Central America where farmers lived, and they were very poor. They were just getting by. And so every farmer would just be able to plant the seeds and make just enough money to buy seeds for next year and feed their family, and they just got along. And then the Depression hit, everything got really hard, and then a drought hit. And the drought came in and dried up the land. And then the winds came in and blew all of the soil away. And the air was filled with giant dust clouds. This was called the Dust Bowl. So the first year this happened, the farmers used whatever savings they had to buy seeds, hoping next year it will work out. And it didn't. Now the next year, they still need to buy seeds and equipment for the next year's harvest, hoping the rains will come back. So they would go to the bank and they would borrow money. And this happened year after year after year. The rains never came. And the farmers kept borrowing money until finally the bank said, we are foreclosing. So the bank would send a man out to each farm to tell the farmer, we're foreclosing on your farm, we're kicking you out. These men, the men from the bank and the men who worked the farms, knew each other from childhood. They lived in small towns. They knew each other from their earliest age. And then they grew up and they went through school, and one went for the bank and one went to farm, but they saw each other at parties and dances, and they were all good friends. And then one day, the man from the bank comes out to the man on the farm and says, I'm kicking you off. And the man on the farm says, why are you doing this to us? And the man from the bank says, and I quote, I'm sorry, I need to set this up. I'm telling you this story because you may be thinking, artificial intelligence, deep learning, okay, if things get out of control, we can pull the plug. We can stop this, right? They're just algorithms. They're running on computers. We'll just turn them off. We'll stop using them. And no, no, we can't do that. We do this to ourselves all the time. We create technologies we do not control anymore. They control us. And perhaps the greatest example of this is capitalism. Capitalism is something we invented. This is not a force of nature. This is not lightning and wind. We invented this. People sat down and they said, we'll have this thing called money, and money will work like this, and there will be loans, and there will be interest. And we created this thing called capitalism. And who did we create it for? Us. We invented this thing to make our lives better, to improve the human condition. And you only have to look around the globe to know it is not improving the human condition for a vast number of people. A lot of people are living miserable lives because of this system we invented for us. But we don't control it anymore. We can't pull the plug. Lots of people try periodically, but so far no one's found a way to do it. We live with capitalism despite its flaws, its enormous flaws, because we don't know how to turn it off. We don't control it. And that's the story of the grapes of wrath. So the man on the farm turns to the man from the bank and he says, why are you throwing us off the farm? And the man from the bank says, and I quote, it's not us, it's the bank. A bank isn't like a man. Or an owner with 50,000 acres, he isn't like a man either. That's the monster. The farmer says, sure, okay, but it's our land. We measured it and we broke it up. We were born on it. We got killed on it. We died on it. Even if it's no good, it's still ours. That's what makes it ours. That we were born on it. We worked on it. We died on it. That's what makes ownership. Not a piece of paper with numbers on it. And the man from the bank says, we're sorry, it's not us. It's the monster. The bank isn't like a man. The farmer says, yeah, but the bank is only made of men. And the man says, no, you're wrong. You're very wrong. The bank is something else than men. It happens that every man in the bank hates what the bank is doing. And yet, the bank does it. The bank is something more than men, I tell you. It's the monster. Men made it, but they can't control it. We do this to ourselves all the time, and we're about to do it to ourselves with deep learning. So I'm here to ask you to not do it. Let me tell you about the present I come from, your future. In our daily life, when we go to get a job, we go to an online system, our version of online, and we look at jobs that are available to us. And certain jobs are available and certain jobs are not. And how is that decision made? By a system out there that may be invisible, and we don't know how it makes its decisions. Maybe we can get the job, maybe we can't. If we apply, maybe we get in, maybe we don't. If we apply to school, maybe we get in, maybe we don't. If our children apply, we don't know what criteria are being used. Now, currently, if someone applies to a university, some criteria are being used, and we don't necessarily know what, but we can sort of guess. In the future, it will be these deep learning systems. Who knows how they make their decisions? Do you want to travel? Yeah, maybe you'll be allowed to, and maybe you won't. Maybe the plane will happen to be full when you go to buy a ticket, but the person behind you is able to buy a ticket. You were not deemed worthy. If there's only a small amount of a certain medicine available, who gets it? Well, a decision algorithm will make that choice. It'll probably be rich people. We know that. But who else? Suppose once all the rich people have the medicine, who gets it? It's going to be an algorithm somewhere. Same thing with healthcare. There are only so many great surgeons. There are only so many hospitals. You need an operation. Where can you go? How much will they charge you? Which doctors will you get? An algorithm decides that for you. Suppose the power goes out. Who's going to get the power restored first? Maybe this is a life and death question. Well, as we know, you might expect it would go to the largest population centers. But suppose that the people in the largest population center are poor. They're not going to be first. It's going to go to the rich people. They're going to get their power restored first. And if you're not in that selected group, you're not going to get power. And if you're living on a machine that you are dependent upon and that machine doesn't have power, you might die. How much money are you going to make? That's always been weird, right? Who the heck figures that out? Well, we leave that up to algorithms. When you go into a court of law, let me tell you what's happening now in the United States. When you go to a court of law in the United States, so this has happened. A fellow was in a car, and he was involved as part of a robbery. The robbery went bad. He drove off. Well, the police saw him and followed him. They sped along the road for a while. He was evading the police. The police finally caught him and pulled him over. All right, you got me. They go to jail. They go to jail. They go to court, and eventually he's found guilty because he was evading an officer, driving above the speed limit. Okay. Now, in the American legal system, one of the factors that they consider when they determine how long you go to jail is, are you likely to recommit a crime? It's called the recidivism rate. Are you likely to re-offend? If so, you go to jail for a longer period of time. Regardless of whether this is a good idea or not, this is how it works. If we think you're going to re-offend, you go to jail for a longer period of time. So what happens right now in thousands of courtrooms across the United States is that there is a computer sitting on the judge's desk. And after the judge has heard the lawyers and everyone talks about how long that person should go to jail, the judge thinks about it and decides how long he thinks maybe that should be. And then he turns to the computer and hits a button. And a deep learning algorithm tells the judge whether you, the defendant, are likely to re-offend. And if the computer says you are, you'll go to jail for a longer time. Now, who trained this thing? This is in use right now. People are going to jail on the basis of what this computer said. So in one of these cases, the case I've described to you, the defense attorneys said, we want to cross-examine that expert witness. You brought someone in to testify against my client. We want to find out what they think. I want to see the training data. I want to see the learning regimen. So they went to the company and they said, we want to see your training data and we want to see your learning regimen. And the company said, no. It's our secret. It's a trade secret, and there's an enormous amount of law that says we don't have to show it to you because it's part of our corporate profit-making ability. Well, this went all the way up to the Supreme Court of the state. And I'm not a lawyer, but they punted. They said, oh, it didn't make a difference. The judge would have made the same ruling. They dismissed the case. Well, it's going to come back. One thing that people have discovered about this software, somebody bought a copy. One of the large public rights groups in America bought a copy of this software. They entered all the data for two different defendants, and they did this many times. In every way, the two defendants are the same except for the color of their skin. You know where this is going. If your skin color was black, you were considered twice as likely to reoffend. And if everything else was equal and your skin color was white, you were considered half as likely to reoffend. So there's a spread of a factor of 4 based on skin color. Well, that doesn't seem right. Everything else is the same. So what did they train it on? Did they train it on like old data? I don't know, maybe. They're not telling us. Are they training it on just like an afternoon of data that they got at the law library? Maybe. Or maybe they had an intern who never even went to the law library. And they said to the intern, write a little program, make up some training data, and we'll train the algorithm. Maybe that's all it is. Maybe it's what this kid, this 22-year-old kid, thought when he wrote his little program. We don't know because we can't see the training data. But this system is being used to determine how long people go to jail. This is happening now. Imagine what's going to happen in 25 years. You want to go get a job? You want to get a house? Maybe you'll be allowed to buy a house. Maybe you'll be allowed to buy a house in that place. Maybe you won't. How much will the house cost? Well, we'll just sort of look at how much you're worth. I mean, don't you love it when you go into a store to buy something and maybe you're looking for a piece of stereo equipment and a salesman or a saleswoman comes up and says, "Hi, how much were you thinking of spending today?" Well, that's the wrong question, but that is often the question. And so when you go to buy a house, they might say, "Well, what is your salary?" And then I'll let you know what the house costs. Well, deep learning systems know your salary, and so they'll set the price accordingly. So let's revisit the issues. One issue is invisibility. Is there a system out there making decisions on my case? Is there something deciding questions for me? In my day, 25 years from now, these systems are ubiquitous and invisible. We interact with them thousands of times a day. Every time we get into a car, every time we use our credit card, every time we make a cell phone call, we are interacting with them. Every time we take a step, because our shoes are instrumented. Every time we move, because our hip implants have RFID and Bluetooth in them so that our doctors can make sure that our hip implants are working properly. Everything about us is being monitored and recorded and saved. It's going up to these systems, and they're going to do something with it. What are they going to do? Who the heck knows? It's completely opaque. We don't know what data they're using. We don't know what algorithms they're using to make decisions on. They're just making decisions. So what does this mean? This means your worst enemy is you. Everything we do is used against us. Everything we do is data to be used in favor of the for-profit corporations and the governments who run these systems. And they're looking out for themselves. Everything we know and do and say and everywhere we go is data that is used against us as a weapon. It's used for the benefit of the people who run the decision-making software, not us. So what does that mean? What has our life become? What are the lives that are being lived by me and my friends 25 years in the future? We are serving the machine. Our job in life now is to produce data for the decision-making systems that control our lives. Now, we're always worried about what decisions those things are going to make. What salary am I going to get? How much vacation will I get? Will I be allowed to travel to visit my parents? What school will my children get into? If I need medicine, will I be able to afford it? All the things we discussed, those are all being decided for us by these invisible, ubiquitous systems. And we are trying to get the best answer we can. You know what that means? Our life is search engine optimization. We are trying to game the system. Everything we do is to ask, what is going to get me the best result when I need something from one of these computers? So if we go out to dinner tonight and you say, let's get borscht, and I'll say, I can't get borscht. I had borscht 2 weeks ago, And I'm afraid that if I have borscht again in a short period of time, a system is going to say I'm eating too many beets, and that's going to have an implication for my blood thickness, and that's going to be a health risk, and I'm not going to get the job I want. So let's have spaghetti. So what a crazy thing, but that's our life now. Everything we do, again, I'm from the future, everything we do is, we have this little process in the back of our head. Is this going to get me a good result from the deep learning system the next time I need something? And of course, we need something all the time. Do you need to get from here to there? You're going to call the equivalent of an Uber or a Lyft. Well, maybe it will come and maybe it won't. You want it to come. So you'll do everything in your life to try to make your scores good enough to cause that thing to come. So what does that mean? What do we have to do in our lives so that we can make these search engines, to make these deep learning systems happy? Well, these deep learning systems are, as it's been said earlier today, they're interpolators. That's all they know. They have a world of data that they know about, and they can move around inside that world of data on which they have been trained. As soon as you get outside of that world of data, the system has to start extrapolating. And they're awful at extrapolating. Everyone is awful at extrapolating. Extrapolation is hard. So as soon as you get out into the world of extrapolation, things become dicey. You don't know what's going to happen. So you want to stay in the region where everybody else is. You want to stay where you think you have enough data that you can game the system and make sure that you are doing what everyone else is doing, because whatever isn't good is bad. All right, so what does that mean? Well, it means differences are punished. It's because these systems are afraid of opportunity loss. False positives are bad, false negatives are fine. Suppose you're a bank, and someone comes into your bank and says, I'd like to get a loan. And we evaluate their loan, and we go, well, maybe, maybe not. The false negative is to say no, when we should have said yes. What does that cost us, the bank? Nothing. We said no. Maybe we lost a little bit of interest in you paying it back. Now, what if we should have said no, but we said yes, a false positive? So we give you the money and you default on the loan. We, the bank, have just lost a lot of money. So false positives are really bad for us as deep learning systems. False negatives are fine. So we are going to be incredibly conservative. And if you're different, if you're weird, that means, well, I don't know how you're going to behave. The answer is no. That's the safe answer. So how do we get around this problem? We can't. It's the monster. Now, the monster is self-reinforcing, like this perpetual engine machine. There's no additional feedback. If the monster says no to your loan, and you go out and you do something else, and it's wonderful, no, there's no corrective signal that comes back. Your interaction is gone. It's done. Suppose that you come from a poor neighborhood where there's a lot of crime, and you're trying to get out of it. So you study hard and you work hard and you have an idea for a business. You go to the bank and you say, I'd like to start a small business, I need a loan. The bank looks at you, as we've seen, they're risk averse, they don't want to make a false positive, and the bank says, no, we don't think you'll pay back that loan. Well, what are you going to do? You're going to go back to your neighborhood where everybody's poor and there's a lot of crime and you've got to buy food, so you commit a small crime. And you still can't get a loan, so you commit some more crimes, and eventually you get caught by the police and you go to jail. And what signal does the system receive? It was right. You were a bad choice. Good thing we didn't give you the money because you're a criminal and you went to jail. It's a self-reinforcing system. It's a self-serving prophecy. What this means is that the systems propagate the past. Whatever it believed was true will continue to be true because the systems enforce the conditions that cause their predictions to be true. It means they don't care about missed opportunities. They don't mind. Again, they don't mind a false positive. They never know what happens after they said no. Now, let's think about how they make these decisions. Again, we don't know the training data, but we know a few things. These systems work like actuaries. They work based on your peer group. I call this demographic determinism. You're a red pepper, but everyone in your family and everyone in your neighborhood is a yellow pepper. So as far as the system is concerned, you are a yellow pepper. You will behave like one because it can't model you individually. That's too complicated. So actuaries have been doing this for insurance forever, right? You go in to get insurance and they look at your driving record and everything else and they determine what kind of a risk you are. Same thing if you want to get health insurance. If you come from a country with private health insurance, they look at your history, they look at your current health conditions and all the rest, and they say, here's how likely you are to get sick, and therefore that's the premium you pay. And it's all done based on large-scale statistics. In other words, your peer group. So you are like your peer group. Now let's suppose you are not like your peer group and you are a red pepper. Well, that doesn't matter. They will turn you into a member of your peer group. There's this fellow named Procrustes. Procrustes was probably a mythical Greek figure. He had a little inn on a road that was frequently traveled. And it was at a perfect place where people would like to stop for the night. So people would come by and Procrustes would say, I have a bed. You are welcome to come to my inn and stay in the bed for the night. And people would say, well, thank you, Procrustes. And they would go in and they would have a nice meal and then they would go to bed. And then Procrustes would say, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you. I have a rule. The rule is you have to fit the bed. If you're too short, I'm going to put you on the rack. And I'm going to stretch you until you fit the bed. And if you're too tall, like this poor fellow, I'll just cut off your legs because everyone has to fit my bed. This is the Procrustean process. This is the enforcement of the rule, one size fits all. If it doesn't fit you, we make you fit it. And that's what these systems do. If you are not like your peer group, they are going to channel you into a set of circumstances and conditions where, surprise, you end up like your peer group. There's another problem, and I'll only touch on this briefly, but because we are talking about computer graphics today, and we've spoken about this earlier, it is the end of evidence, right? We have lost the ability to trust any photographic material, any audio recording, any video recording. Even today, someone takes a picture of this truck and they say, oh, you're speeding, you were exceeding the speed limit, and we're going to take you to court. And you get a hold of the picture and you say, I wasn't exceeding the speed limit. There were no posted signs. In fact, there weren't cars in the incoming direction, and I wasn't even on that road. In fact, there weren't even any other cars there. That's where I was. Now, this is the picture the police are showing, and this is the picture you're showing. This took about 4 minutes in Photoshop. Imagine if you spent 8 minutes. Suppose that the police bring you in suppose that the police bring someone in, and the person says, I was mugged. And they say, sure, okay, we believe you. Here are a bunch of pictures. You pick out the person who mugged you. And they show you this lineup of pictures. And you pick out someone, or they pick out someone who looks like you. The only problem here is none of these people exist. These are absolutely hallucinated people. They're not cut and paste. I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen these. They're not cut and paste. They're not, a nose from here and a mouth from there. These are completely imaginary from first principles. There's an algorithm now that can just crank out unlimited numbers of absolutely fake appearing people, as many as you like. I'm sorry, they're not fake appearing. They're real appearing, but they're fake. And in a couple of years from your time, they will be fully animated, they will talk, they will move, and the video of them doing anything will be indistinguishable from any other video. And so if a politician or a famous figure is caught on tape by a video camera doing something horrible, and with them saying, watch as I beat up this little kid. And they kick the little kid and they steal his candy. And they look at the camera and they say, ha ha. And you say, well, we got you. No, because he'll produce a piece of video that shows he was in another country at the time. And you will not be able to tell which video is real. And it pains me, but we have to acknowledge that these systems are being used for fighting warfare. The better you can predict what the other side is going to do, the better your odds of winning. And so there is an arms race in the future for AI systems. And the arms race is absolutely brutal because anyone who has a slight edge in prediction and logistics is going to win. And so everybody is fighting to get that slight edge. And it's just ratcheting up. Enormous amounts of money and human capital are being wasted in this horrible, horrible activity. So how did we get to this point? We were fooled. We didn't know it was going to be that bad. We thought the problem was garbage in, garbage out. We thought, oh, you give a computer crappy information, you get crappy information out. But it turns out that's not the problem with deep learning systems. It's bias in, bias out. That's the problem. If you give this system data that has any kind of a prejudice or a bias, that becomes locked in and perpetuated forever. In these systems, data are forever. Any piece of data that goes into this system, now, if it were isolated, you would have a chance of going back and correcting it. But you know what happens? As soon as the data goes into the system, within seconds, it gets sliced, diced, repackaged, and sold to many other systems, who then slice it and dice it and sell it. And the data just proliferates all over the world. You can never get it back. So if there is an error, if there's a piece of data in your record that says you exceeded the speed limit on one particular road on one particular day, or you kicked a child and stole his candy, or you ran down the street naked and scared the dogs, that data is attached to your name forever and will never be eradicated. This means that people are raw materials. In my era, 25 years from now, we exist to be mined and sold. And then what is sold is used against us to manipulate us. So Ken was talking about these glasses that everybody has in my day that have little cameras and they have little screens. And so we see all kinds of information superimposed on the world. And it tells us all kinds of things about maybe where we want to get lunch or information about stuff that's going on. Well, who's controlling that flow of information? It's not us, the citizens. It's whoever is in control of that information. Again, the governments and the for-profit corporations. So maybe the information that we see all the time is helping us navigate the world is completely wrong or biased or chosen specifically for us on an individual basis to manipulate us. The system knows so much about us. These psychological models can be found that will find our weak point, and the system just drives into the weak point and torques that. So whatever little psychological weak spot you have, that's what this thing hits as hard as it can in order to cause you to buy something or vote somehow or go somewhere or just do whatever these organizations want you to do. Again, I want to remind you, this is not for our benefit. It's for the benefit of the people who own the systems. So I'm looking around and I see all this stuff. Do I trust any of it? And it's not passive. Who is reading all this stuff off of my glasses? It's those corporations. They know that when I walk up to you and I see you and I say, oh, hi, a bunch of stuff has happened. My heart rate's gone up a little bit. I have a little bit of sweat. Oh, I must like you. It can read a little bit of reflection off the inside. It can see that my pupils are dilating. Well, the camera is also able to see you, and it says, oh, you like him. And so now the system knows an enormous amount about you and me. Who gave it that permission? Nobody. But we have the glasses, and they're recording everything. If we get into a self-driving car, it records where we got on, where we went, anything we said while we were inside. Your life and your psychology are recorded, analyzed, and deployed against you. And we are all aware of it. We are being manipulated every day with our own information. The whole world is curated against us. Everything, every bit of information that we see, everything we encounter, the places we're allowed to go, the places we're allowed to go to school, all of our choices, all the things that we today think of as freedoms will all go away because they will be curated. And our options will become small and just the ones that somebody else, the people who run the deep learning systems, believe will be best for them. So it's what to study, what to read, what to watch, where to relax, what music you listen to, how much you get charged, where you can go. Everything from the mundane to the politics is mediated. Suppose you opt out and you say, I don't want to be part of this. Good luck, because your friends are viruses. Your friends have got the glasses. And as soon as they come up to you and they shake your hand, it's all over. They've got your DNA, they've got everything they need to know about you. You can't get out of it. And you know this now if you've ever used one of these online greeting card services. Suppose you want to send, a birthday card to someone. So you can go to this online site and you say, I want to send a free birthday card to my friend Henry. And it says, oh, what's Henry's email? And they go, do. And they say, oh, thank you so much. We'll send him a free card. Well, now they have Henry's email. They know he's my friend. They know his birthday. He didn't give them permission to know that. I volunteered it because I'm a virus. Even worse, our children are viruses. Our children are spies. Our children have got these smart toys that talk to them. And they ask them questions, and the children answer. And what happens to that answer? It gets digitized and sent up to the cloud, where it gets analyzed by a deep learning system in order to compute a response. But also, the information in the answer gets saved. So maybe our friendly little teddy bear says, let's pick a simple one, like who you voted for. Did mommy and daddy vote yesterday? Oh, no. They said they don't like to. Oh, well, that's interesting. That's good to know. Or, yes, daddy voted for candidate A, but mommy said candidate B was better. Oh, thank you. Children will just share information with their friends and with their toys, and all of that gets saved. And there's a lot that you can extract from that. You can extract politics, prejudices, beliefs, religions, all that stuff that you might think you're keeping secret is all implicit in the conversations that these children have. And sure, we can say you're not allowed to ask explicit questions, but the information is still there implicitly. And you say, well, I'll just anonymize my data. Yeah, no, you can't anonymize your data. Even now, you can get 2 or 3 anonymized data sets, merge them, and we can identify you with a high degree of accuracy. And a few years from now, when the data sets are more proliferated, there is no anonymity. And there's also no consent. You are automatically consented. If you need an emergency operation, you're going to sign anything they put in front of you. We all joke about, the iTunes agreement that nobody can read. It's designed to be unreadable, right? It's not an accident. That is in legalese. It's like 8 pages long. It's designed to be incomprehensible to anyone but an attorney who's willing to put in days of effort. So nobody opts out of these things because you can't anymore. There's this idea we have often thought of being wonderful, which is personalized education. Oh, wouldn't it be great if there was a book or a character who understood you, who could find out what you love and help you learn? No, that's a terrible idea, because that means whoever is in charge of that book or that character turns you into what they want you to be. Now imagine the most benign scenario where they test you at age 4 and they go, oh, you seem like you would be a good poet. And so for the next 3 years, you get mostly poetry. Now, I love poetry. I'm just choosing this as an example. And now, maybe at age 7, they say, well, did we get that right? And they test you again. Well, of course you're going to score high on poetry. That's what you've been learning for the last 3 years. So if we start training children to be what we think they ought to be, rather than allowing them to discover who they are, we are controlling them. And that's what these deep learning systems in my era do, because who could resist the idea of personalized education? This is not a new idea. Go read Brave New World. We've got the alphas and the betas and the gammas and the deltas, and they picked out who's going to be the winners and who's going to be the losers, who are going to be the rich ones, who are going to do the hard labor. You figure that all out of childhood, and then everybody becomes what they were determined to be, because that's how we raised them. That's how we taught them. So things are bad for us. We're desperate. What are we doing? We got like no choices. We have two choices. One choice is data freedom. The only way you make data not be valuable is you make sure everybody has access to it. And how do we make sure that everybody has access to all the data? We create a total surveillance state. That way no data is free. Well, that's no good. So the opposite is data privacy. And that's no good. That doesn't work, right? There's data breaches every week. You can't lock this stuff up. So those things don't work out well. The key problem here is that there's a huge gulf between what is important to us as people and what is measured and quantifiable and representable in a computer system. The computer cannot represent the things we care about. It can only represent the things it can quantifiably measure. So what's happening in your present? Right now, I hate to say it, guys, you're buying surveillance systems. You're paying for them. They call them smart speakers, but they're surveillance microphones. They call them smart screens. They're surveillance cameras. If you have a breast implant, or this is a real breast implant with an RFID chip in it. Many breast implants have these now so that a doctor can scan an implant and determine, who made it and make sure that it's licensed. But other things will have this, and of course you can swallow a pill and there'll be real-time monitoring. You think your watch reporting your heart rate is intrusive. Soon your entire blood chemistry will be known on a minute-to-minute basis. And worse, there is absolute snake oil out there. There are charlatans and frauds. There are firms you can go to online right now, and I will not do them the credit of giving you the URL. They are out there now. You can give them your money. And what they promise you is that using a deep learning algorithm, and it's on the page, they're saying it's deep learning. Using a deep learning algorithm, they can take a picture of a face. It's all they need, a face. And they will tell you if that person is gay or straight, maybe an academic researcher, a professional poker player, a white-collar offender, or maybe a terrorist. This is nonsense. This is when they used to measure your skull to figure out what you were good at. This is absolute snake oil, but this is being put out there because it's deep learning and therefore good. Very quickly, you guys you've been talking about this today, the Chinese citizenship score. This is happening everywhere in my era. Right now in the Chinese system, which is mandatory next year, if you have a high score, you get better matches from online dating. For real, this is part of the promise. You get to go places, you get cheaper utility bills. If you take out a loan, you get higher interest. Now, what will cause your score to go down? Oh, if you drive badly, maybe if you smoke outside the no smoking zones, or if you own too many video games. For real, if you own too many video games, the Chinese government will drop your score. And if your score goes down too low, what happens? You go to buy a plane ticket? Nope. You like your fast internet? We'll take that away. You want to go to a good school? Sorry. You want to get a good job? Nah. But we will do one thing for you. We will publicly shame you. Now, I don't mean to say it's all bad news. These systems have brought us some good things. They've brought us the joy of discovery. They open us up to things that we never thought about. What's out there that I don't know about? The deep learning system can say, you've never had pistachio chocolate hazelnut ice cream. You would love it. Did you know that existed? I didn't know that existed. I gotta go get some. Have you ever been to Haiti? Have you ever been to this place? Have you ever swum underwater? These systems help us learn about ourselves. They know all about us, so they can fill in the holes. You know what? Maybe I'm a great trumpet player and I just don't know it yet. Well, this is one of the wonderful things about our deep learning systems in the future is they help us discover these things. So we learn about ourselves and we learn about humanity. We find out the strengths and weaknesses of cultures. We can compare our cultures and determine how good we are at helping one another. And the good value of that is that it helps us stay alive, right? Where are all the other civilizations out there? This is called Fermi's paradox or Drake's equation. Where are all the other civilizations? Well, maybe they killed themselves with bombs. Well, maybe if we know enough about ourselves and our culture, we can change ourselves and our culture, reshape our incentives, reshape our economic systems so that we don't live in constant fear of war and self-annihilation. These systems are also really nice for personal growth, help you fix your bad habits, help you make new good habits. So I have come back to the past to urge you to take action. This is the time when you can avoid these things because it's easier to avoid a problem than to fix it. You can avoid it. Here are some ways that you can avoid this terrible future. Keep your databases small and local. Don't build these massive systems with an enormous amount of stuff in them because they will only be used against you. Keep them small. Keep them isolated. Now, you do this legally. Of course, there'll be people breaking the laws. You can only make the laws and try to enforce them. Don't let these systems make the conclusion. Don't let them say, you get the job, you get to go to that school, you get a raise. That's not their position to make that decision because they don't know about us. They don't know how to be kind. They don't know how to be generous. They don't know you have a daughter who's sick and therefore you need some more money this month. They only know what they can quantify. And that has nothing to do with what we value. What do we value? We value love and friendship and affection and spirit and joy and connection. Deep learning systems they don't know about this. It's not just that they don't incorporate those issues, they don't even know they exist. So don't let them make the decisions. People make the decisions. Use these systems to expose the relevant information that goes into making the decision. And then let the human make the decision. And if you don't like it, make sure there's someone else you can go to and complain and say, take another look. Maybe a few of them. Just like right now, if you go to get a loan and the bank says no, you go to the next bank. And they say yes or no, you go to the next bank. And finally, you find one that says yes. If all the banks are sharing the same database, they're all going to give you the same answer. So keep it small, keep it local, have multiple options. Whenever there is a system, make sure that they show you how they train. Make it a law that the training data has to be exposed. And by training data, I mean the training data, the regimen, the architecture, everything that goes into the system has to be publicly available and verifiable. Make sure we have people watching over the systems. Make sure that there are humans, specific individuals, who have responsibility for the decisions that these systems make. Because otherwise, who cares, right? Just let them do whatever the hell they're going to do. Our corporation will make money. Who cares who gets hurt? If someone gets hurt, someone has to take the blame. This is how we manage our social contracts. This is how we prevent people from hurting one another. This is why we have police, right? If you hurt someone, there will be repercussions. We need to have repercussions. And the only repercussions that matter are you personally are the one who suffers. If you made that decision, then you have to take responsibility for it. If you deploy a deep learning system, you have to make it visible. You have to tell people it's there. And if you've exposed the training data, you're exposing how it works as well. Finally, we have to do research into the subjectives. We have to figure out how to teach these machines to value the things we value. The sorts of things I talked about before: friendship, love, compassion, music, happiness, joy, even hurt and sorrow. These systems need to know because they're affecting our lives. They have to be able to take this into account. Now, right now, there is no way. We don't know how to quantify these things. We don't know how to measure them. We don't know how to represent them. We don't know how to put them into a deep learning system. We have to figure that out. If we're going to allow these systems to control and influence our lives, then they have to do it in a way that respects the human condition. So we need to champion creativity. If you're weird or different, that's good, not bad. We don't punish it, we champion it. We encourage people to be unexpected. And we always, always make sure we are not developing these artificial intelligence and deep learning systems for profit, for government control, for efficiency. That's not it. We're doing it for love. We're doing it for family. We're doing it for happiness and health and the negative emotions too. Sorrow and sadness and confusion and loss, but joy and friendship and family. Those are the things that matter. So don't let these AI systems become the monster. Don't let them become the thing that every person hates, and yet it happens. Don't let that happen. You are now, you folks in the past, you're at the moment when you can shut this down. So, be nice to one another. Teach your computers to love and value individual humans. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Andrew, for this talk. I hope the suicide rate in here will not increase too much after this. Let me ask you one question. Now, I'm asking Mr. Glassner, who is lives in 25 years.
Okay, the time traveler.
The system is awful, as you say. Are you happy?
No, we're confused, desperate, and paranoid.
Now, you want us to train the systems to understand your feelings.
I want you to avoid giving the systems that kind of power. But if that's inevitable, then I want you to train the systems to understand the human condition, yes.
Okay.
And take that into account when they make their decisions.
At the same time, you say that the systems are owned by the corporations, by the governments.
That's right.
And so what would the motivation of a corporation or a government be? What would they do if they also know about your feelings? How would the decision that the system makes then be different?
Well, it's more like how they are today. The corporations that are helping us to put on this symposium are not doing it out of the goodness of their heart. They're doing it because they believe by supporting this kind of scientific gathering, we will have good feelings towards that corporation in the future. We will buy their products, and we will support their legal arguments, and we will allow them to prosper as a corporation. And so they are, in effect, lobbying for our goodwill. And that is the situation I wish to perpetuate. Human beings are deciding, yes, we are going to sponsor this charity. Yes, we are going to sponsor this marathon run for breast cancer. Yes, we are going to sponsor that big party on New Year's Eve. What's in it for them? Goodwill. Pepsi-Cola supports the marathon. So those are human beings making those decisions because they think it's going to make us like them. And to a certain extent, that does work. I want that to continue. If we have to give them this decision-making power, I want them to consider making us happy.
Okay. That sounds positive. There's one question over there.
I wanted this all to be positive. You know how much it hurt me to be talking about these down things?
Yeah.
Dear person from the future, thank you very much for your great, interesting talk. I'm here. So you suggested some ideas on how to avoid and not fix the explained problems. How do you know it's not already too late?
I don't know. I hope it may already be too late. I don't think it is. I think that this genie can still be put back into the bottle with strong laws and legislation. I don't know that for a fact, but I think it's possible. I could be wrong.
Thank you.
I would have come back 2 years earlier or 4 years earlier. My machine ran out of dilithium, and this is as far back as I could come.
Okay, thank you very much for the talk. Here I am. Thanks for pointing out visibility. And we're in Austria here, which is a country where we already have algorithms of some sort. For example, at the Arbeitsmarktservice, which is the institution that tries to support people that need a job. Are you aware of the campaign named Public Money, Public Code?
No, that's the first I've heard of it.
Okay,
I heard about this job thing, but you told me now more than I had known before.
Okay.
And I've never heard of this movement.
Okay, so Public Money, Public Code, I'm not affiliated with them in any way, but I would like to point them out because it's, I think, from a German Free Software Foundation, or I might be wrong, but it's an initiative that says that software that is developed with taxpayers' money should be public in any way. And that would really say and support the thinking that algorithms that decide over taxpayers' wills that are paid with taxpayers' money should definitely be public. So I'd like to share that here now.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay, so right there.
Okay, hi. So I really like the talk, and I thought about the combination, like if we're having an algorithm and the algorithm is biased by a certain way of training data, and then I thought about the talk before that we can create training data, right? And this is like a really, really big thing now. How can we artificially create training data that we have training data for a world, like for a certain algorithm, to decide in a way how we want it. So basically, we have all the tools to say we want a world like this. We want that algorithm decides like this. We want that everyone reacts like this. So we can create training data to train an algorithm to make decisions in a world we want to live in. Do you? I don't know if it's a bit confusing. It's just a.
I think I follow you. Let me see if I can paraphrase it. You're asking, can we create artificial or synthetic training data such that when we train the system, we get the kinds of results we want?
Yes, this is exactly what I want to say.
Yeah.
It's called academic fraud.
Well, it's hard. It's hard because in any finite subset of an infinite space, you are necessarily making a choice. Think of a photographer who takes a picture of any scene. That photographer is choosing to include some information, prioritize the information that's close, and exclude the information that is out of frame. That's a lot of choosing. So that's a lot of, in another word, bias. Those are a lot of choices. It's a lot of preconceived ideas that are being baked into the artifact, in this case, a photograph. If we were to create synthetic data, we would have the same problem. The synthetic data we create would be of our making. And we would say, I want this, I don't want that. I want it to do these things, it better not do those things. I love the idea. And if there is a way to construct a synthetic database that is fair and shows the kinds of equality we care for and covers the kinds of ethics and morals that we care for and produces results that we say, that's the kind of result we would get from an honorable, thoughtful, just person, then I'd say, please make that database today. I don't know how to make that database.
I don't know too, but I saw like if everyone is reacting in a way like how he is supposed to react, depending on how the system is making the person, and if you have a system making the person as its best as possible, like it's like worth thinking about. So
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Hello. Is your future more like Brave New World that you mentioned, or more like 1984?
Yeah, it's some of both. Some of both. I would say some of the more oppressive characteristics are closer to Huxley's book. The thrusts of 1984 were surveillance and distrust of government messaging, and the changes that come about because of constant surveillance. The issue here is it's not so much that it's a different kind of surveillance, right? It's not people listening to what you say. It's monitoring of your blood flow and your endorphins and what neurochemicals, neurotransmitters you produce upon seeing someone else. And so, in Huxley's books, the children get raised to fulfill predetermined roles. And that seems to me a far more drastic condition. And again, that would come from this personalized education stuff. So it's some of both, of course, and some of neither and a lot of something else. But if I had to put them on a scale offhand, I think I'd lean towards Brave New World, just in terms of its oppressive sense.
Thank you for a great talk. As you said, artificial intelligence is not really intelligent, so these algorithms are really simple. Don't you think it's easy to sidestep them or to fool them? So maybe if I know like the system values when I'm eating broccoli, I just eat a lot of broccoli and then I smoke like 2 packs of cigarettes. So to fool the system, shouldn't this be easy if it's so dumb or not intelligent?
I think it would be hard. First of all, you don't know what the system is looking for. So you don't know how to game it. You don't know how to trick it, because that's all secret. Second, you'd have to keep up that act your entire life. I don't think you'd enjoy that. So as a hacker, that might be the totality of enjoyment, right? I'm outwitting the system, man. I have a hacker supreme, and that's all I need from my life, and I'm willing to eat broccoli and smoke 2 packs of cigarettes every day. If being a hacker does not bring you that much joy, then I think the cost would exceed the benefit.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Here. Thank you very much for visiting us.
Now where? Someone wave?
Here. And I would like to challenge your notion that the situation could be improved if these deep learning systems can factor in the human aspects. Because, just as John Steinbeck wrote in that novel in 1939, Grapes of Wrath, those were humans who nevertheless served the monster. So basically, if you plead for a digital dictatorship with a human face, a little bit eastwards from this city, we had it already. The socialism with a human face, it doesn't work. It's still bad. So I think if there is a solution to this, it's definitely not that the systems become aware of the human aspects that they are missing now. Because the people who worked for the bank in 1929, they were also aware of the human aspects, right? Because they knew the people that they had to evict from their farms. It didn't help, and it will not help. I think what will help, maybe, is the idea of keeping the data local and isolated. I think there was a journalist who tried to go underground and failed. But in the Middle Ages, it would have been possible because all the information that was collected about people, it was very, very local. If you wanted to start a new life, you had to walk to the next city, and then you could do it. Already today, not in your time, but in our time, it's practically impossible to start a new identity unless there is a powerful 3-letter organization behind you that creates you a new identity, but that's a serious challenge. So I think if we could figure out how to keep these systems local, and I have my doubts about that, unless we figure that out, we are completely doomed. And then, who knows? If there is a digital dictatorship coming, I would put the chances to 90%. Eventually, there will be a revolution against it. Not in your time, but maybe 100 years from that. And again, it's just bloodshed again. So, welcome to the human condition in a new digital version.
So there's a lot to unpack there. Let me just address one thing.
I know. I like to listen to my own voice. I apologize.
No, that was let me rephrase that. That was an interesting comment full of many complex and interesting ideas. Let me refer just to one of them, because it just caught my ear. You spoke about the digital dictatorship. I would not use that word, because dictatorship implies a centralization of power and sort of this hierarchy with someone on top. This is a distributed oppression. This is a large number of independent organizations which are not cooperating. In fact, they might be competitors. In fact, they might be antagonistic to one another. Nevertheless, each one in its own way is exerting its own control upon us. So it's not centralized in the sense of a dictatorship. I mean, we can talk semantically about whether that's the right word or not, but I wanted to communicate that idea that this is a decentralized, widespread issue of multiple databases, multiple decision algorithms, multiple owners of decision algorithms. They are not cooperating. They are not unified.
But funnily enough, that might make it more resilient, just as the internet. If you do not have a central node, but distributed control, it's much more difficult to fight.
I'm not arguing for this. I'm only explaining the future that I fear. I'm not advocating that we do it.
Okay. So we have time for one last question.
All right, and I'll get up to avoid the confusion of who's speaking.
Thank you.
Sure, I noticed you indicated that. Thanks a lot for a very engaging talk. And I agree with you when you said that, deep learning should not be making decisions for us, or about us, actually. And it should be used to inform the decisions that then humans can make. But is that enough? Because what happens with, or to those humans who are informed by this computer? Who are they? What do they know? What do they know about how, where that information comes from? And so, isn't it very important also to consider how they're educated, that they can think critically, that they know how computers work, or what limitations that information might actually entail still, or what might be wrong about that information. So basically, where did the future go wrong in this regard about not educating people to deal with that? And actually, isn't it too late already? Because this is what happens. If I go on holiday, I check the internet, I check ratings. I'm not sure where they come from, and I make decisions based on that. So, yeah, where would you pick up in our case?
Well, very interesting question, and you're right. It is. I think we all now know not to really trust the ratings we see on the internet. We know that there are factories of. They're called factories. They're sweatshops. Huge numbers of people with banks of cell phones, just upvoting particular products and places and downvoting others, and they're totally gaming the system. You asked, isn't it important that people be educated? And education is always the answer. Education is the way out of almost every problem. When people are informed about history, when they're informed about the options that they have, then they can make choices. It's when you don't know anything but your own system, and you don't know anything about your past, that you have to have a remarkable facility to break out of that mold, because it's everything you know. It's in some ways it's like a cult. What we call a cult is a closed system where information is tightly controlled.
Bubble.
Sorry?
The bubble, we call it.
A bubble. Okay, is that a term used here?
The information bubble, which might, for example, Facebook builds around someone. You get all the information you're interested in, and none of the information you're not interested in.
Yeah, okay, but I'm taking that to the extreme, where that's, or I understood that to be the nature of the question. So if we take that to an extreme, then we're in big trouble. And education is the way out. You always want the most thoughtful, sensitive, informed persons making all decisions possible. And again, to your question, is it too late? I hope not. Maybe it didn't come through. I'm an optimist. I really am. I mean, the first 4 drafts of this talk were fun and upbeat and funny. What happened? The more I thought about it, the more I thought that things are, it's more important to talk about, and we're here to talk about the future. And I thought it's more important to actually try to articulate what I felt were the risks. So I hope it's not too late. Maybe it is, but I don't think so. I don't. We can still, I mean, this is the thing. We can still turn this damn thing off. Now, it's hard, and you're limited, and you're looking at me like, you can't. I can. I live without my phone for days at a time. All right? I'm weird, but I can do it. And you could do it too if you wanted. You don't want to, that's fine. But you can live without this. You can walk to where you're going. You can buy your groceries. You can see your friends. You're giving me that pained look. Your life may be different than mine, but I'm saying I can turn the damn thing off. Some of us can, and that's why I think it's not too late. And we are still mediating the information. I'm talking to you right now. As far as I'm aware, nobody is controlling what I see or hear. My sensorium belongs to me. As soon as I abdicate that, as soon as something is pumping sound, something is pumping images, maybe it's pumping smells, maybe I'm wearing contact lenses, maybe it's another few years in the future and we have direct cortical implants. All right? Now that's going to be scary because when you start having a thought, whose thought is that? Right? You start thinking, I'd like to eat a Snickers bar. Is that you? Or is that the Snickers company putting that thought into your brain? We're not there yet. And so there's a lot of things that could still happen that I think we can shut down. And that's why I think there's hope. Because there's a whole big abyss out there and we're nowhere near a lot of it. And so, for example, we could right now just say, no direct cortical neural implants. Just no. And we can just shut down that whole horrible scenario. And I think we can do that for some of these other scenarios too. Maybe not all of them, but as many as we can.
Okay, so this is a very positive last word. Thank you, Andrew, again for this marvelous...
Thank you.
Now we will immediately go on with the panel discussion. So I asked the 4 speakers and Edi Gröller to come to the podium. And before we start with that, we have a small present for each of you. So, Gerd? Yeah. No, but please.
Folks, we have now the panel. You should not leave. I mean, we have your data. We have your data, your name, your biomarkers will be recorded. So come back and stay for the panel.